When Amy Carlson died, the people around her did not immediately treat her death as final. They kept her body inside the Colorado home where Love Has Won operated, preserving it through mummification while maintaining that Mother God remained present and capable of leading them. The central mystery is not simply why a body was mummified. It is how an online belief system made ordinary evidence seem less trustworthy than the leader's claims. Carlson had presented herself as Mother God, a divine figure who claimed to have lived through hundreds of reincarnations. Love Has Won was built around that identity. Its followers did not merely admire a spiritual teacher, they accepted a hierarchy in which Carlson's words defined reality, morality, health, and purpose. That distinction matters because a charismatic leader is not simply an engaging person. It is someone whose personal authority becomes more important than independent judgment. The group's digital-first structure allowed that authority to travel constantly. Live streams, online broadcasts, chat rooms, and social media created an environment in which Carlson's teachings could be repeated throughout the day. Digital indoctrination is the process by which technology is used to reinforce belief, loyalty, and dependence through continuous exposure. Instead of attending occasional meetings, followers could remain inside the group's message almost without interruption. The internet also changed the boundaries of membership. A person did not need to live near a commune, attend a formal service, or meet a recruiter face-to-face. They could encounter the group during a period of loneliness, uncertainty, or personal crisis, then move deeper through repeated online contact. The distance offered privacy and comfort. It could also conceal warning signs from relatives, professionals, and institutions outside the group. One of the earliest mechanisms in such environments is love bombing. The term describes intense, often strategic attention that makes a new member feel uniquely understood, valued, and welcomed. In an online community, it may appear as constant replies, emotional affirmation, spiritual recognition, or invitations into private conversations. The attachment can form before skepticism has time to develop. Belonging arrives first. Questions become harder to ask afterward. Once a person accepts the group's emotional protection, contradictory information creates pressure. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort produced when a person holds two conflicting beliefs, or when reality challenges a deeply invested identity. Rather than abandon the group, members may reinterpret the evidence. A failed prediction becomes a test. Illness becomes spiritual transformation. A leader's deterioration becomes proof of sacrifice instead of a reason to seek help. That pattern did not require every follower to be irrational or unintelligent. People enter high-control groups through ordinary human needs: connection, meaning, certainty, and hope. Some may be searching for answers after trauma or disappointment. Others may simply be drawn into a community that appears compassionate. The vulnerability is situational, not a permanent defect. Under pressure, almost anyone can become dependent on a system that promises to explain everything. Inside Love Has Won, Carlson's identity appears to have organized the group's entire worldview. The title, Mother God, placed her beyond ordinary accountability, while the group's teachings gave followers a special role in a cosmic struggle. Such claims can produce an us versus them mentality, dividing trusted insiders from skeptical outsiders. Family members, medical professionals, and authorities can then be portrayed not as possible sources of help, but as threats to spiritual loyalty. The consequences became more severe when control extended into daily life. Reports about the group described sleep deprivation, alcohol abuse, and constant digital surveillance. These conditions are not merely unusual habits. Sleep loss weakens concentration and emotional regulation. Alcohol can impair judgment and increase dependence. Surveillance teaches members that privacy itself may be disloyal. Together, these pressures can narrow attention until the group's interpretation is the only one that feels coherent. Continuous exposure also creates an echo chamber. An echo chamber is an information environment where people mainly encounter views that repeat and strengthen what they already believe. Online platforms can intensify this effect by rewarding emotionally engaging content and showing users more of what holds their attention. The technology does not independently create a cult, but unchecked digital reinforcement can accelerate isolation, repetition, and obedience. The unanswered question is why followers did not intervene when Carlson's health failed. The available account points toward a system in which medical reality had already been subordinated to spiritual interpretation. If a leader is believed to be divine, visible decline can be reclassified as a transition. If outside authorities are viewed as hostile, seeking medical help may feel like betrayal. The belief protects itself by redefining the emergency. This is where the group's ideology became physically consequential. Preserving a dead body was not a symbolic gesture performed from a safe distance. It required followers to remain in proximity to death while denying its meaning. Mummification is the deliberate preservation of human remains through drying, chemical treatment, or other methods. In this case, the practice reflected the group's refusal to accept that Carlson had died and its claim that she continued to lead from another state. That claim should not be confused with evidence of life after death. The documented issue was behavioral and social. People treated a deceased leader as active because the group's belief system required that conclusion. The body became the final test of loyalty. Accepting death would have challenged Carlson's divine status, the group's teachings, and the sacrifices members had already made. Denial was not a side effect. It helped preserve the structure. Police intervention exposed the gap between the group's internal reality and the outside world's legal and medical standards. Authorities found Carlson's body in the Colorado residence, and the circumstances brought national attention to Love Has Won. The investigation transformed an online spiritual community into a public case study in psychological harm, custodial responsibility, and the danger of treating extreme claims as harmless eccentricity. The tragedy also raises questions about responsibility without reducing every follower to a villain. Some members may have believed they were honoring Carlson, others may have feared what would happen if they rejected the group's explanation. In high-control environments, personal agency can be gradually compressed by dependence, exhaustion, fear, and social isolation. That does not erase consequences. It helps explain how actions that appear unthinkable from the outside can become acceptable within the group. Former members of high-control organizations often describe the difficulty of leaving even after doubts emerge. Exit counseling is a structured process that helps someone examine a group's claims, relationships, and control tactics, usually with informed support rather than coercion. Leaving is not simply walking away from a building. It can mean losing a community, a worldview, housing, income, and the identity that once made life feel meaningful. Love Has Won also demonstrates how digital groups can blur the difference between audience and congregation. Followers may watch a leader through screens, respond in real time, donate money, perform assigned tasks, and absorb the same message from other members. The interaction feels personal, yet it can be carefully concentrated around one authority. Technology supplies intimacy at scale, while reducing the opportunities for outsiders to interrupt the process. The group's collapse did not begin only when Carlson died. Collapse was already embedded in the system's dependence on one person's claims. When a movement equates truth with a leader's continued authority, the leader's illness, absence, or death becomes an existential threat. There is no stable succession, no independent institution, and no accepted process for correction. The organization can only deny the crisis, reinterpret it, or fracture. That is why the mummification remains such a revealing act. It was not merely an unusual response to grief. It was the end point of a chain that began with digital access, intensified through love bombing, hardened through cognitive dissonance, and was protected by isolation and surveillance. Each stage reduced the power of ordinary explanations. By the end, the physical fact of death had to compete with years of reinforced obedience. The broader danger extends beyond love has won. Social media can connect people to support, education, and community, but the same tools can magnify authority without accountability. Algorithms can reward certainty, outrage, and emotional intensity. Live streaming can create the impression of constant presence. Private groups can make concern look like persecution. None of this proves that every online spiritual community is abusive. It shows why scrutiny must follow power, secrecy, exploitation, and harm. The most important warning is not that followers were uniquely gullible. It is that belief can become a closed system when every challenge is absorbed as proof of the system's truth. A leader's confidence becomes evidence. A member's exhaustion becomes devotion. An outsider's concern becomes an attack. In that environment, the path from hope to dependence may be gradual enough that no single moment feels decisive. Amy Carlson's followers called her Mother God, and Love Has Won gave that title a digital audience capable of constant reinforcement. When Carlson died, the group's response revealed the tragic consequences of unchecked indoctrination. A community so committed to preserving its explanation that it could not accept the most basic fact before it. The body remained, the claims continued, and the final boundary between spiritual loyalty and dangerous denial had already disappeared. Subscribe.